Hello there. This is Luciano Oliveira Lawyers. We're starting one more live stream Wednesday, October the 30th, almost Halloween, both in the United States, Brazil, and pretty much everywhere. I hope to see some of our usual friends over here. And I got the first one. How's it going, Bill? Good to see you over here. Bill, are you doing tricks or treaties? Let me know how it's gonna be your Halloween. Paige, bom dia, Luciano. Good to see you here, Paige. So good to see some familiar names. And while you guys warm up, I wanna just share about something that I think it is important to tell you or to share with you. It's about the fear of missing out, right? Fear of missing out. It is something that it does impact the journey of many foreign citizens in Brazil from different perspectives. One that is, really harmful to foreign citizens is whenever they are buying real estate properties in Brazil. I can tell like they get attached, and of course that's natural. They get attached to a certain property, and then instead of playing their cards right, they are going to rush in terms of trying to get a deal done. And because of the intricacies of the process of buying real estate in Brazil, particularly for foreign citizens, they are going to kind of miss important steps from a safety perspective, and they are also going to hint. They are also going to hint to the sellers about their willingness to pay more. Okay, so I see that happening. I see that happening every time. A seller in Brazil is going to increase the price for no reason other than perceiving the capability of a foreign citizen to pay more, okay? And it is sad. I don't think it is ethical, right? But for sure, it's not illegal. And I see that happening all the time. Another version of the fear of missing out. It is like whenever you are, getting a place in Brazil, particularly when you're trying to find like a rental, or it could even be like a short-term rental such as Airbnb. Many foreign citizens, they are going to find something. They're going to say, well, this is really perfect. Like I'm going to book this thing for 6 months. And my recommendation is to always keep to a minimum. If you're going to arrive at the country, you need, to find where you are, to adapt to the country before actually testing new locations out. My recommendation is for you to never book something for over 30 days. 30 days is more than enough for you to acclimate in the country and to decide on your next steps. Unless, of course, you've been coming to Brazil for, I don't know, like 5, 10, or 20 years, like it is the case for many of our clients. And if that's your situation, then of course, by all means, consider securing a place for longer term. But for many of you, and I know some of you personally, through our consultations, through the services that we've been providing, I really advise you that you do not commit for a longer term, at least at the beginning of your journey. All right. Another version of the same concept, right? Like the fear of missing out. It happens in kind of personal relationships, particularly whenever there is for instance, someone in the United States, and they start a communication with someone in Brazil. If this thing evolves into a more kind of romantic relationship, I see that happening all the time. I would say most Brazilians would never ask for anything, right? Like ask for money, for gifts, or that's usually how people in our society works. Like people, they have some pride, even if they have, kind of restrictive financials. They are not going to be pesting a foreign citizen for money, gifts, and whatever advantages they can get from this person. However, there may be a fraction or a small percentage of Brazilians who may decide to take advantage from a closer relationship with a foreign citizen. And if that happens, my recommendation is for you to walk away. Don't think twice if someone is saying, well, I have here a problem, I cannot pay rent, can you help me out? And usually, people are not going to ask you for help. They're just going to, discuss about a problem, a dilemma, a challenge, and they're going to let you take the first step, right? And it's going to look like it's your decision, but actually it was an idea planted by someone ahead of time, all right? That happens, of course, in addition to those kind of real situations, which in my opinion, they are not that often. There's going to be plenty of scam. And usually whenever there is a scammer pretending to be like, let's say, a Brazilian lady, most of the time the person is not going to be even in Brazil. It's most probably than not to be somewhere in Africa or Asia, all right? Like, I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm discriminating by any measure. I'm just stating the facts, right? Like we do unfortunately have a few cases here, the form of people being scammed, right? Some of them, they are being scammed. I would say most of them, they are being scammed by scammers that are not in Brazil. And a tiny percentage are being scammed, unfortunately, by Brazilians, all right? So just sharing this as a general heads up, as the introduction theme of our today's live stream. All right. Paige is mentioning tomorrow is my cat LJ's Gotcha Day. Time to celebrate. There you go, Paige. Jake FX, hello from Northern Ireland. All right, Jake, thank you for coming by. And Bill says, yes, I have a bag full of tricks. What about you? Do Brazilians celebrate Halloween? Yes, Bill, believe it or not, that wasn't the case like 20 years ago. But nowadays is becoming part of the Brazilian culture. Can you believe it? Okay, and we don't translate. We just say Halloween. That's the same, spelling, the same pronunciation, and pretty much the same concept. The way Halloween parties came to Brazil, I believe it was because, of course, not only the exchange. In terms of foreign citizens from each other's country, like changing places, but also because of language schools in Brazil, like language schools, they have the Halloween parties in a way to promote their language schools. And there are also many, the so-called international schools in Brazil, particularly like in São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro. There are a couple in Fortaleza. There are several in the south of the country, particularly Florianopolis, and they're international schools, so they like to again use Halloween to promote this idea that they are international, right? So, and then of course other schools, even if they are not related to international schooling or languages, they are picking up on the Halloween just because everyone else is doing. So it became like something almost like part of the Brazilian culture, right? Not surprising. I think it just happened with the Christmas, right? Like Christmas, I never researched at length, but people say, I think it was an advertisement from Coca-Cola or Pepsi, and eventually this thing got a motion of its own. And nowadays, Christmas is something huge, right? Not only in the United States, but also in Brazil, which is so funny because, like Christmas is usually associated with snow and winter and, all the, the snow related themes. But in Brazil, whenever it's like December, the 24th and the 25th, guess what? Like it's summer, okay? So there is no snow, there is no cold, there is just like, a lot of heat. and still like we kind of accommodate this type of originally U.S. Holiday to the Brazilian culture, right? So we are big in Christmas, and for Christmas we have the traditional Christmas tree, and with all the whistles and bells, with the balls, with the decoration, even with decoration that's gonna pretend to be snowing on the tree, even though outside it's gonna be like 90 degrees, but people are still pretending like they are in a kind of snow winter environment, which is so interesting if you think from a cultural perspective, right? So Halloween, we have a Christmas. We don't have Thanksgiving, all right? Thanksgiving, it's one that it never, people in Brazil, they don't usually even know about Thanksgiving. Like, it doesn't make much sense. We have a poor translation of Thanksgiving, which we say Dia de Ação de Graças, which would roughly translate the day of enaction of thankfulness. Okay, kind of it does convey the meaning, but we don't have it such a holiday. On the other hand, Brazil has many holidays that have no place in the United States. For instance, a bunch of holidays related to saints, right? So there is like I'm not really big in terms of names of saints, but there is, for instance, Senhora de Aparecida, right? Senhora de Aparecida is one of the main holidays. I think it's even like a national holiday. We have another holiday, if I'm not mistaken, it's also a federal holiday, which is like the Day of All Souls. It's when you kind of pay your respects for like the deceased family members and friends, and that's another major part of the Brazilian culture. But Thanksgiving, we don't have anything like that. There is a bunch of holidays related to religion. Always the Catholic church type of holidays, right? Which is also interesting for you guys, because the Brazilian demographics when it comes to religion has been changing dramatically. So like 30 years ago, pretty much everybody would be Catholic. Of course, like with a very tiny Jewish population. The Jewish population have been in Brazil since like the probably 1700s, okay? And the Jewish population in Brazil, they are tiny in terms of fraction, but they are very present and in our not only culture, but also in the business areas, right? In the business and professional areas of Brazil. Something very interesting, like from the Jewish perspective, the first synagogue in the United States was founded by Brazilians, right? Which is an absolutely shock to most people in the U.S. So 30 years ago, I would say probably over 95% of the Brazilian population would be Catholic. Nowadays, like the Protestant or, like the Christian, non-Catholic churches in Brazil are expanding the most. And nowadays, it is as common for you to find someone who's not a Catholic but still a Christian as you would find someone who's a Catholic Christian, right? So that has changed dramatically in the last 30 years. And if it wasn't for the Catholic Church presence in Brazil for the last literally 500 years, I'm sure that the non-Catholic branch of Christianism would be like the vast majority of the country as you speak. So very interesting change, in religious, approaches like in Brazil. Nowadays, I would say people in Brazil, they're more curious about other religions. Brazilians, they are also very curious and fast to adopt new beliefs, right? So very specific to the Brazilian culture. So in Brazil, you're going to find temples for Buddhism and pretty much any other religion, even like mosques and other types of religious institutions throughout Brazil. Usually there is a lot of tolerance in terms of a Brazilian to other, religions and cultures. And Marcela is just pinging here, candomblé. Yes, exactly. Candomblé is huge in Brazil, Marcela. And candomblé is like, it comes from Africa. It's more oriented, like to the interaction of a person with, like the, spiritual side of things, right? So there is like connections like to spirits, representations. There is a lot of dance. It's something culturally very, interesting, all right? Because it is something very lively, okay? Very lively, candomblé. And believe it or not, Marcela may know about that, there is a lot of candomblé places in the United States. Of course, not surprisingly, brought to the U.S. by Brazilians, not by Africans, by Brazilians. Okay, so I remember, like in Massachusetts, I was once traveling, like in Massachusetts, and there was like a candomblé center in a tiny city. I don't recall the city's name, but there was a large community of Brazilians, maybe like 200 or 300 people who would congregate in that particular candomblé center. Very, very interesting. There is another one which is like Kardec, Espiritismo, right? We say in Portuguese. Kind of translation would be a focus on the spirit. And the core of this religion, if you can say so, it is for you to actually access other spirits through communication and conversation. It's kind of different from other religions, but it is something very typical of Brazil as well. All right, so I hope that was interesting to you guys. As I usually tell, I try to bring, like interesting facts about the Brazilian culture so you can enrich your knowledge of Brazil. All right, we have a first question here. Andrew Hewitt. Andrew is asking, I receive my apostille for all documents by next week and will contact you to continue my process for the retirement visa. I'm looking to be in Brazil by December 9th. Andrew, you are on the right track from a time perspective. My recommendation, whenever you are ready to hire our services, is for you not to wait. And the reason why I say so is because if you start now, then you can have our advisory for how to legalize the documents in the United States, right? Like if you do all this, like by yourself, it is kind of like wasting the advisory that you would get from us because the cost, the fee is going to be the same, right? So you're better off starting early on to get the most advisory you can from our team. But anyhow, I see your dates here, Andrew, and I can tell you are a planner, and I'm sure you're going to be just fine, and you're going to have a blast of retirement in Brazil. All right, Marcela, hello, Bill. I'm well, thank you, and yourself. I didn't know there was any candomblé in the U.S. Yes, Marcela, there's a lot of candomblé. There is even like the Espiritismo, right, centers, the spirit centers in Brazil. There was even like there's some kind of cults that are not really religions. There was one in which people would kind of drink some type of tea, like to be in a different altered mind state, and of course, like there wasn't I think at least until several years ago, it wasn't a religion, right? Like, I mean, you can never tell when something is a religion or not. But I know that probably up to 10 years ago, at least in Brazil, we would say it was a cult, right? So whenever the TV, like the news channels, they would talk about that, they would say it's a cult. And the cult that I'm talking about, at least from back then, I apologize if it is a religion nowadays, but it was the cult of the Saint Dime, right? And dime, it was the kind of tea that they would use to ingest and get into this altered state of mind, and then access different realities from their perspective. All right. Okay. New question from Bill. Luciano, is there any urgent care centers around in case of an emergency or any kind of accident? Bill, so Brazil doesn't have the same structure as the U.S. In the U.S., there are the ER, the emergency rooms, or your urgent care centers. It depends on the state that you're talking about. In the U.S., in Brazil, we don't have such business model. So most of the time, you're gonna go straight to a hospital, which, in my opinion, it's good because if you go to an ER, they do have like specific equipment, physicians, and technology to take care of urgent care, right? But of course, they are not as well prepared as a whole hospital. So in Brazil, there are no ERs per se, right? Unless this is something new that's being started by some U.S. citizen who saw an opportunity there. But in Brazil, if you are involved in an accident, you're going to be taken to a hospital, period. Okay, there are no ER type of things in Brazil, or better saying, the ER, urgent care centers, they are within the hospital, right? They are not like a separate unit. Another thing, like in Brazil, it's also interesting that we do have like the universal care, meaning that anyone in theory, if you are in an accident, like if they take you to a public hospital, or if they take you to even a private hospital, but under the urgent care to be provided by the state, in theory you wouldn't have like any bills at all, right? Of course, there are exceptions. There are like gray areas. Maybe you were taken to a hospital, but it wasn't really something urgent, and they're gonna say, well, you're bad. Like, now I'm gonna charge you. I'm gonna hit you with a bill. But most of the time, you're not gonna have any bills at all. Like even for very extremely expensive medicine, right? Like we see that happening all the time in Brazil. Maybe someone has a very a kind of rare disease. After a while, like you may need to hire an attorney to help you get this through. But usually the Brazilian state, meaning the federal government, sometimes the state government, sometimes the municipality, they are gonna pick the tab, and sometimes we hear about drugs costing like several thousands of dollars, and which by Brazilian standards is like a crazy type of amount, and the government is still gonna pay, right? So very different from the U.S. Health system. Like, I mean, I think it's difficult to say that the U.S. health system is good by any measurements, right? I know that it's super common. Like sometimes I see it on TikTok, people making fun of this type of situation in which you are not good, you are kind of ill, but you don't want to go to an ER because, I mean, you're going to be hit with a bill of $1,000 to $2,000. Maybe you are in this kind of ER service for a couple of hours, and the bill is going to come like $2,000, right? Like, I mean, so even for U.S. citizens in the United States, I mean, this is something crazy. Insurance costs, I know it's also like very difficult for most people to pay unless you have the, a participation of the federal government, the Obamacare. I don't think it's Obamacare anymore. But by any means, right? Like, I mean, if you go to Portugal, to Europe, like nobody has something as bad as the United States when it comes to health, okay? I think you guys would be on the same page. I don't find kind of often any U.S. citizen saying, no, I love the, U.S. health system, right? So maybe just like everywhere else, there are, upsides and downsides. And I believe, in my opinion, that in the United States, the health system is one major downside, all right? Okay, so just sharing, addressing Bill's question about the urgent care, because we are talking about the subject. Let me remind you, like If you try to buy health insurance in Brazil before you become a resident, you're not going to have access to the same type of health insurance that we have, meaning you're going to have to buy what I call for gringo health insurance. Okay, so if you're in the United States, you are beginning your journey, right? Let's say, let's talk about Andrew. Andrew is at the beginning of his journey. He's still in the United States. He doesn't have the resident card. So if Andrew tries to buy the health insurance, he's going to buy the for gringo type of health insurance, meaning he's going to pay much more than he should for an insurance that for most providers in Brazil, it's not going to be even accepted, right? So pretty bad deal, in my opinion. Now, once Andrew gets the resident card, with the resident card, guess what? Like, he's going to be able to buy the same health insurance that I have. Okay, the same health insurance that I have, which is like the everyday Brazilian health insurance, which is much cheaper than whatever you're going to see in the United States. And as long as you buy the same one that I have, I mean, I'm not talking about the same provider. I'm talking about this kind of general across the board insurance that every Brazilian, not every Brazilian, that most Brazilians have. And then this health insurance is going to be accepted across the board. Okay, so that's another tip for people who are starting their journey as Andrew. All right. Okay, Marcel is sharing a story here. I got sick one time in Brazil and was surprised at how well I was treated. I had to go early in the morning to make sure they could see me that day. First come, first served, and it was free, just meds. Yes, Marcel, I like that. I like that. Yes. You know, like the Brazilian health system, of course, you know, for a country of, you know, over 200 million people, it's not going to be perfect, but it does take, I think, good care of the population. Of course, every now and then you're going to see some type of, you know, like news going on. There is, you know, like some, you know, allegations of corruption, or there is a hospital that it is overcrowded and is not taking good care of the patients. But in general, I think that the Brazilian health system is pretty good, and not to mention the quality of the professionals, right? Like, I mean, it is like, you know, like, and well, I'm Brazilian, so I'm biased, right? Like, but I think that professionals, health professionals in Brazil are 10 times better than whatever you can get in the United States, right? In the United States, maybe it is how people learn things. Maybe it is like all the restraints that they have when they are performing. Maybe it is like the always present risk of litigation. But there is something in the U.S. health system that does not allow professionals to become as skilled as the professionals in Brazil. So from my perspective, even if you get a physician like in a tiny city in the north of the country in Brazil, I think this person is going to be 10 times better if you get a top physician in New York City in a big hospital. That's my opinion, all right? And I think that most foreign citizens, when they are in Brazil, they do get this feeling. They are very glad. Same thing with dentists. Same thing with, you know, cosmetics. That's something I hear over and over and over, right? Like, I mean, once you try the Brazil health system style of things, you know, the physician, very personal. They're going to spend a lot of time with you. They're not going to rush you. They're going to connect you on a personal level, things that you don't have access to in the United States. All right, Paige is sharing. I'm confused on this one. Where I live, ERs are connected to hospitals and are used as triage, basically the first step before being admitted to the hospital. Urgent care centers are separate buildings. Yes, Paige, maybe, you know, like I'm just using the wrong terms, right? But what I mean are like the urgent care centers. At least in Texas, in which I travel often, I see they look the same, right? Like urgent care centers and ERs, right? So Maybe the ER, because it's saying room, it means like that this is a room inside a hospital, right? So to make sure this is clear, I think Paige got a point over here. I'm talking about the urgent care centers. We don't have urgent care centers in Brazil. If you're thinking about an ER as an emergency room in a hospital, then yes, that's what we have. So in Brazil, we don't have urgent care centers. There is no separate building, separate type of business for you to go. You always go to a hospital. All right. Thank you for clarifying, Paige. That was a good question. All right. Paige, was my first question missed, or did I just miss the answer? All right. Let me see. Let me see if I can find Paige. Yeah, no, you're right, Paige. Thank you for calling attention to that. But if a foreigner decides to give a Brazilian friend gifts, would they find it offensive? No, Paige, I don't think they're going to find it offensive. They are going to try, most Brazilians, right? They're going to try to say, no, you don't need, I don't want, but they're just kind of pretending, showing some resistance. But once you say, no, I insist, they are going to have it, and they're going to be pretty happy. They're going to be pretty happy with your gifts. And gifts, they are part of the Brazilian culture. But, just by the resistance that most Brazilians would show when you first offer a gift, you can tell that it's not really common in our culture to ask people for things, right? So that's something I do highlight, like in consultations every now and then, when there is like a cross-border type of romantic relationship. If a person is telling me, well, this Brazilian is always asking me for things, like I sent some money at the beginning, now I'm sending very often, like this is a very bad sign, right? Like, I mean, that doesn't sound like a healthy relationship to me, because Brazilians have a more kind of, it's more like an European style of handling, this type of, things. Just like in Portugal, right? Like, I mean, of course, probably all of you know that Brazil was colonized by Portugal. We still have a very close relationship with Portugal. If you are in Portugal, a group of friends, people don't usually share the tab. There's going to be a fight after, lunch or dinner, in which everybody's going to be fighting to pay the whole bill. And at the end of the day, like, there is no even sharing of the bill. Maybe this is changing because like newer generations in Portugal, they are actually being much more exposed to different cultures. Like a lot of Portuguese, teenagers, they go to the UK or to the US for further education. So it's changing. But traditionally, people in Portugal, right? Like, I mean, they would never do like you would do in the United States, in which everybody's sharing the bill. In Portugal, people would be fighting to pay the whole bill, right? And that's not so much in Brazil. I would say, like, if people say, well, let's share the bill, I think people would wish they could pay the whole bill. But maybe if it is a large group, like the person is not going to be even capable of paying the whole bill, so they are going to actually accept the idea of sharing the bill, right? Like in the United States, and then you guys correct me if I'm wrong or not. It's more like things that I see from snapshots into the U.S. culture, but there is actually an expectation, like and it's probably changing nowadays, right? But let's say a few years ago or a decade ago, it would be pretty common for a guy to pick the tab, right? Like, I mean, the woman would never, pay her share, and it's almost like an assumption. I think it's still part of the U.S. culture. Like, if you go to a party, and guys are going to be buying drinks for the ladies, right? Like, I mean, and there is no such a thing in Brazil. Like, if in Brazil, usually, if you are in a party type of environment, in a nightclub, and if you try to buy a Brazilian a girl like a drink, she's gonna say no, I don't accept that, right? particularly, and also because nowadays there is also the risk of something being put in the drink, right? But I'm talking more about from a cultural perspective, Paige, like, Brazilians, like, and I saw that happening, right? Like, I mean, 30 years ago in the US, when I came to spend like, a season like in New York, in a place called Fire Island, and I would see all the time, right? Like people buying other people drinks. Nobody would ever say, no, I don't want it. No, I don't accept. And you see that happening very often in Brazil. If there is, for instance, trying to buy people drinks, they're gonna say, no, I don't want it. No, no, don't do that. Why would you do that? Like they're kind of resisting, right? And in this case, it's more than the initial resistance that I told you before. That's more of a real resistance. Like people don't understand why you're buying the drinks. They say, no, you shouldn't be buying me a drink, right? But there you go, Paige. Let me know if you have any additional thoughts on that. The 552, good to see you over here, the 552. The 552 says, agreed, the healthcare is super expensive. I once got charged around $12,000 due to a simple checkup because of a stomach ache. However, insurance covered the most of it. Yes, the 552 is unbelievable. I don't know why the system works like this. Again, maybe the risk of litigation, the need for insurance, all the systems, technology, the cost of real estate in the U.S. There are many factors impacting on that. But $12,000, like to something like this is just ridiculous. And even if the insurance covered the 552, correct me if I'm wrong, you probably had to pay something substantial, right? Because insurance in the U.S., it doesn't usually cover everything. It keeps like a percentage of the cost for you to take care. Ronnie Dio, good to see you, Ronnie. What is the difference between the UPA and the hospital? I've heard my Brazilian friends complain about the UPA. Okay, so the UPA, Ronnie is mentioning about UPA or UPA, all right? We call it UPA in Portuguese, okay? UPA, that would be the acronym in Portuguese or in English, right? And the UPA is a kind of public hospital. They try to make like a unit, a kind of self-sufficient unit that's going to provide like consultations. Mostly consultations. UPAs, they are not real hospitals, right? They are more like a consultation center with kind of family doctors and specialists for some main kind of specialties, such as a gynecologist, maybe, like a nutritionist, maybe they have a half a dozen specialties within this unit. And just because they have all of those folks over there, they also have a kind of ER, emergency room within, right? But they are not really equipped to take care of major traumas. But UPAs are a choice of the federal government to kind of make health services easily available to the population. And the reason why they complain, Ronnie, is because you probably interact with like more people from the Brazilian middle class or upper class. So when you have like people who are being paid like minimum wage in Brazil, they don't have much of an option to pay the health insurance that I was talking about. And therefore, they are going to need to use the universal health system. And UPA is part of the universal health system. Now, an UPA could work well like in smaller cities or certain places. But if you are usually in São Paulo, if you are in Rio de Janeiro, if you are like in a major big city, UPAs, they are going to be usually overwhelmed. Okay, so if your friends, Ronnie, if they're from the middle class, they're going to say, well, I'm not going to go to UPA, right? UPA is for someone else, not for me. And then they are going to be paying the private insurance that I was talking about. And with the private insurance, you don't go to UPA. You're gonna go to a private hospital that's gonna provide naturally a more sophisticated type of service, right? So the installations, like the building is gonna, look better, right? Like, I mean, you're gonna see the furniture is gonna be of a better quality, okay? The physicians over there, they're gonna be better paid, right? So at the end of the day, probably the private health system in Brazil, it does work better than the public one, okay? So that's why your friends complain about the UPA. They're basically saying, listen, like, I mean, I can afford something better than UPA, okay? But I don't think there is anything wrong with UPA. It does meet the needs of a large share of the Brazilian population. All right, Paige says, I was worried that my custom-made expensive gifts might have come across as an insult to their financial status. I hope I expressed that correctly. I get it, Paige, and it makes sense, right? Like, I mean, if you give like someone, I don't know, right? Like, and it also depends on your relationship with the person, right? So let's say if you have this friend for years, if you have a close relationship, if they did help you in other ways that not financially, maybe you're not gonna offend or they're not gonna perceive as an insult. But if you give someone like an iPhone, right? Like maybe you got the new iPhone 16 or even the 15, and if you're giving someone an iPhone 13, that's not something that a Brazilian would ever give to someone else, even if the person is rich. So it's kind of not weird, but it does cause some level of shock. But again, it's going to depend on your relationship. Like I'm going to give another example. Like we have a client who kind of recently, maybe 6 months ago, she gifted her friend in Brazil like $100,000 for her Brazilian friend to buy a house. Okay, actually it was part finance, and the $100,000 came as a way for the Brazilian lady to pay as a down payment. But look at that. This U.S. citizen and the Brazilian friend, they were in a friendship relationship for over 30 years, right? So it was over 30 years of a friendship. And the Brazilian friend, even though she never gave anything of financial value per se to the U.S. citizen, she did help the U.S. citizen in several ways, including receiving this person at her house for several times, right? So, like it really depends on the type of situation, but if there is a close connection, right? Like, I mean, a close connection, a longer term connection, I think it starts to make more sense. What I think it's really bad, that from my opinion, right, is like whenever I see, particularly, like for some a man from the United States, when they come to Brazil, they start to gift ladies like, things of a high amount to pay their bills. I mean, it doesn't look good at all. I can tell you, if you do so, you do not come across as a reasonable person. That's the first thing. You're gonna look like weird, in a bad way, unfortunately, and you are also setting up a type of relationship that maybe it's not going to develop as healthy as it could otherwise, right? Like, I mean, just slow down. I know, like where, sometimes people come from other countries, they find, a romantic partner in Brazil, they get so excited, like they can help, right? They are going to do stupid things. But listen, if you seek for advisory from other people, who see the same type of situation over and over, maybe you're gonna get some advice that it could be to your advantage, right? That's the whole point over here, is to share advice and to share ideas that are going to help you in your journey in Brazil. Okay, all right. Let me see what else we have. All right, the 552, do you think that approaching people in restaurants and offering to pay people lunches, dinners in Brazil would be a good idea to make new friends and practice Portuguese? Would it be considered rude? The 552, I don't think it is a good idea, okay? Trust me, just by approaching people with no offers to pay for anything, like, I mean, that's more than enough for you to open the door to making new friends, right? Like, I mean, Brazilians, and I had this discussion yesterday in the evening with another Brazilian lawyer, and she works like in the international law space, and she was mentioning, you know, how excited Brazilians are to make friends with a foreign citizen, particularly from the U.S. Okay, let's not hide the truth. Like, I mean, people are really excited to meet people from the United States. And if you just approach anyone, the 552, that's going to be more than enough. That's, to Brazilians, sometimes that's going to be a gift by itself, right? So if you want to give a gift to a Brazilian, just approach and say, listen, make a comment, right? Like if you are walking around Avenida Paulista in São Paulo, you could ask for anything. I don't know, like, how do I get to this place? Like, what do you think about the temperature today, right? Like, I mean, or you could say, listen, I'm here, that's my first time, and I really like this place, right? What do you think about this place? So just by asking such a question, you're going to open the door to make friends in Brazil, and the chances are you're going to be making the right type of friends, the 552, right? So, to give you a short answer, no, do not offer to pay for people's meals. That's not a good idea, just because that's unusual, and that could cause some kind of, confusion. Like, people could get confused. Like, they could even think, well, maybe he thinks I don't have money to buy food, right? So I don't know. Like, I mean, I would avoid that. You by yourself is interesting enough, the 552, to make as many friends as you want in Brazil. All right. Yes, 552 answering here my question. Yes, it wasn't totally covered. It was unfortunate seeing how expensive the healthcare is. Yes, the 552, certainly a downside of living in the United States. Okay, Marcela, answering to the 552, the best thing I found the gringos can do is learn Portuguese. Brazilians love when foreigners can speak even a few words. Yes, Marcela, there you go. It shows they aren't Spanish and respect their culture. Yeah, that's something big. Like, I mean, if you try to speak with a Brazilian in Portuguese, or if you come up, Brazilians get really upset because Brazilians don't see. We don't see ourselves as Spanish, right? Like, I mean, that's something very basic. If you are interested in the Brazilian culture, don't do this mistake, right? First, because we are not Hispanic by any measurements, right? So we come from the Iberic Europe, like from Portugal, right? And Portugal is not the same as Spain. Portugal has different food. Portugal has different, language. So Portugal and Spain, they are not the same by any means, right? And so if you address a Brazilian as a Hispanic person, it comes across as offensive, right? Like, this one is a clear cut. The gift thing, there are nuances to it, but the Spanish part, people trying to address Brazilians in Spanish, even if you're not meaning that they are Hispanic, they are going to interpret as so. Okay, because if you're saying hola, como estás, and to make things even more challenging, Spanish, it does sound similar to Portuguese. We have like some similar words, words that are kind of similar in sound, and not surprisingly, many Brazilians, they can understand Spanish. But I'm telling you, like, if you address people in Spanish in Brazil, they get really pissed. Okay, or if you say, you start to make assumptions about their culture, that it is the same of a Hispanic person, you're gonna piss these people off. All right, okay. So that's a great point, Marcela. Thank you for sharing. All right, the 552, thanks Marcela for the input. I definitely be learning Portuguese to prepare the move to Brazil. Yeah, yeah. No, don't worry too much about it, right? The 552, just so we said, you can learn the language while you're making friends, right? So maybe just learn enough to introduce yourself to a person, and from that moment on, the learning Portuguese is going to be actually the way that you're going to be making friends in Brazil. Paige, I knew them for about a year at the time of my visiting and gave them gifts to say thank you for hosting me for the week and taking care of me, as well as giving my friend gifts for his birthday. Yes, birthday gifts, they are a great idea. And if there was a host, for a place in which you were staying for free, then it kind of makes sense, right? Like there is a clear financial benefit there. I wouldn't see as a problem to give a gift. Okay, Paige. So it looks like you are taking the right temperature of the situation and you are dealing accordingly. Marcela, for sure, it's super easy to talk to people, especially sitting at little outside bars or even the sidewalk watching a soccer game. Some say Portuguese words. Oh, say some Portuguese words, and they will love you and engage. There you go. Nothing more than that. That's pretty enough. Follow Marcela's, routine, and you guys gonna be good. Okay, Paige. When I say expensive, I just mean they seem expensive because one of the gifts was laser engraved. They weren't actually that expensive, just appeared that way. That's all right. Yes, Paige. Yeah, that's all right. Like I said, if you are gifting someone an iPhone 13 or 14, people are gonna be, kind of shocked. But if it is something that was laser engraved, we have a laser engraving, equipment in Brazil, so it wouldn't be that much of a shock. And it looks like, again, you are on the right track. Don't tread on me. Hello, Luciano from Seattle. Good to see you back in the saddle. Thank you. Don't tread on me. And I saw your message. I really appreciate it. It does mean a lot to me when people show, appreciation for what we do and for our well-being. Thank you so much. Don't tread on me. Okay. Paige, the 552, from my experience, Brazilians love meeting new people and making friends without needing prompting. They seem to come out of the woodwork to greet me while I was there. Absolutely right, Paige. Sometimes you don't even need to make an effort, right? If you're just right there and people see you and they say, well, this person maybe, they need a friend, maybe that's enough for you. To have people approaching you, and when they realize you are, a foreign citizen, you're not from Brazil, then they are going to be even more interested to learn about you, just because you are not the same as the next bear, right? Like there is this saying in the United States. I'm not sure if it is known across the U.S. states, but there was such an interesting saying. Some person told me several years ago. You are not the same as the next bear, okay? So there you go. Like when you are a foreign citizen in Brazil, people are going to look at you and they're going to say, listen, this person is different. He comes from a different environment with different values. I want to interact and I want to learn more about this person, okay? All right, the 552, thanks for the input. Paige and Marcela, thanks from Mr. Oliveira for the response and live stream. You're pretty welcome, the 552. Yes, I see we have about 5 minutes time over here. Just want to let you know I'm going to try to do our next live stream on Sunday. If I'm feeling well, I'm going to do so. Just have some, minor health issues going on, just basically need some additional rest. But anyhow, I'm keeping the schedule for Sunday. If I don't have any issues over the weekend, I'm gonna be here with you guys on Sunday. All right, and we're gonna be discussing about any topics you guys want to be discussed as usual. And it's already in our YouTube channel. So if you go to our channel right now, you are in our channel, right? So after the live stream, if you just check on the date, there is a notify me button. If you click on it, as soon as I started the live stream, you're gonna get a prompt to join the live stream. It does make it easier for you to remember about the live stream and to join the live stream as well. All right, Marcela, exatamente, Americans know Spanish, so it's natural to try and use Spanish, but it's kind of insulting. Yes, Marcela, and it's very unfortunate, right? Because, Americans don't mean any offense, but yes, Brazilians are going to take offense, right? And Brazilians, usually they are very accommodating, very very sweet, particularly when interacting with foreign citizens. But if you're talking in Spanish, they do find it insulting just because we don't see ourselves as Hispanic, right? If we are right or wrong, that's another matter. We are here to share things as they are. An interesting aspect is for more educated Brazilians, we know that we are Latinos, right? So the Latin culture is more encompassing. So Latin culture would cover, for instance, Brazil, would cover Portugal, would cover Spain, would cover France, would cover Italy, right? That's the Latinos, right? The Latin culture coming from the ancient Rome, okay? So in my understanding, I don't see myself as Hispanic by any means, but I do recognize that I am Latino, okay? So, but maybe some Brazilians, they don't understand the distinction. Even if you are correct to say that a Brazilian is a Latino, you can still offend the person because particularly for people who don't study much, they don't understand the distinction between Latino and Hispanic. And therefore, even though, yes, Brazilians are Latinos, they're still going to take offense. All right. And these are some of the very rare occasions in which a Brazilian is going to feel offended. Right. So maybe just learn and forget about Hispanic, forget about Latino. Just understand that the Brazilians don't like to be categorized as such, and you're good. All right. The 552 was it pain on the left or right side? Yeah, there was pain on the left side and on both sides as well, right? So, and I'm doing several exams. So far, it didn't trigger the need of an immediate intervention. So I am in the cycle of doing, blood work, measuring blood pressure, But I'm just being careful. I appreciate the concerns. Marcela says, Luciano, obrigada por tudo. Looking forward to having a digital cafezinho with you this afternoon. Oh, that's great, Marcela. So I didn't know we had a meeting this afternoon. That's so cool, Marcela. I couldn't tell. Now I can. Really nice to know. So nice to know about that, Marcela. All right. So let's take the final participation over here. Page, in my opinion, they should take offense because it shows the person hasn't taken the initiative to research the country or even make an effort to learn even the most basic fact, what language they speak. Thank you for understanding, Paige. Yeah, there you go. That's true. But, the bottom line is just like Paige said, learn some basic Portuguese words. Don't try to communicate in Spanish and use that to your advantage, right? Because, again, the Brazilians are going to be super excited to help you learn the language for free. Nobody's going to be charging you money. You're going to be making friends in the process. So all in all, a really great opportunity. All right. I want to thank you guys for your participation. I hope to see you guys again on Sunday and you have a blessed rest of your Wednesday.